Did you know that truly awakened people don't gain anything new, but let go of everything that held them back? Carl Jung spent decades studying this fascinating paradox. The more you release, the more complete you become. There are 7 specific things spiritually mature people leave behind, and you're probably still carrying at least 3 of them without even realizing it. It's not about meditation, crystals, or mantras. It's about dropping invisible weights that drain your energy every single day. The first thing to let go of goes against everything society teaches about success and happiness. And the last one, that'll turn your head inside out. Get ready to question everything you thought you knew about spiritual growth. Spiritual awakening doesn't happen overnight, you know? It's like peeling an onion, layer by layer, tear by tear, until you reach the purest center of who you really are. Carl Jung spent his entire life studying this process, and what he discovered might surprise a lot of people. Spiritual awakening isn't about gaining something new, but rather about letting go of what no longer serves you. It's a fascinating paradox. The more a person leaves behind, the more complete they become. Just imagine, you've spent years carrying invisible backpacks full of expectations, masks, and performances that weren't even yours to begin with. The awakening journey is lonely at first, but that doesn't mean it's sad. Quite the opposite. It's like finally taking off tight shoes after a full day of work. Jung observed that truly awakened people go through a slow, gradual process of letting go. And it's not just anything they leave behind. There are 7 specific aspects that keep most people trapped in a life of appearances and unnecessary suffering. What's most interesting is that these abandonments aren't forced. They happen naturally when someone starts to see beyond the veil of collective illusion. You know that feeling that something's wrong, but you can't quite put your finger on it. That's exactly where the process begins. The person looks around and realizes everyone is chasing after something they don't even really know what it is. Jung called this ego inflation, when we think we are the character we created to survive in the world. But there's a life beyond this constant performance, a more authentic and genuine existence waiting to be lived. The problem is that to get there, you first need the courage to let go of some pretty comfortable psychological crutches. What comes next might challenge everything you believe about spiritual growth and personal success, because the first thing highly spiritual people let go of is precisely what society values most, and what, ironically, distances us most from who we really are. It's a hunger that's never satisfied, no matter how much you try to feed it. Letting go of the desperate hunger for approval. The search for approval is like a bottomless pit. The more you throw in, the emptier it seems to get. Jung noticed that spiritually mature people develop a healthy indifference to what others think of them, not out of arrogance, but because they understand something profound. Someone else's opinion says more about the person giving it than about the person being judged. It's liberating when someone finally understands they've spent their entire life dancing to a song they don't even like, just to get applause from an audience that's barely paying attention. This desperate hunger for external validation is what keeps millions of people trapped in an endless cycle of anxiety and inadequacy. Here's something curious. The more someone chases approval, the more it escapes them. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. You might catch a little bit, but it quickly slips through your fingers. Truly awakened people discover that the only approval that matters comes from within, from that quiet voice that knows when you're being authentic or just faking it. They stop posting every moment of their life on social media waiting for likes, stop molding their opinions to please the majority, stop hiding their quirks to fit into some mold someone invented. It's a gradual, sometimes painful process of accepting that not everyone's going to like you, and that's okay. Letting go of this need doesn't mean becoming an antisocial hermit. Quite the opposite. When you stop begging for crumbs of approval, you start offering the world something far more valuable: your raw, authentic truth. Jung said that individuation, the process of becoming who you really are, only happens when we stop living the life others expect from us. It's like trading a distorted mirror for a crystal clear one. Suddenly, you see who you really are, with all your beauty and imperfections, and discover that's more than enough. But letting go of external approval is just the beginning of this deep deconstruction. Because right after that comes an even more challenging abandonment, that burning need to be special, unique, different from everyone else. It's a subtle ego trap that catches even the most conscious people off guard. Letting go of the need to be special. The need to be special is the ego dressed in Sunday clothes. It looks noble, but deep down it's just disguised vanity. Jung watched with fascination as even people on spiritual journeys fell into this trap, turning their own awakening into a competition of who's more enlightened. It's like they traded the race for money and status for the race for crystals and aligned chakras. The packaging changed, but the product stays the same. True awakening happens when someone deeply accepts their ordinariness, when they understand that being common isn't a curse but a disguised blessing. After all, there are billions of people on the planet, and thinking you need to stand out from all of them is a recipe for frustration. Spiritually mature people discover something revolutionary. There's nothing wrong with being just another one. In fact, there's a deep peace in letting go of that constant pressure to outshine others. It's like finally being able to breathe after years of holding your breath. They stop turning every experience into an extraordinary story to tell. Stop exaggerating their synchronicities to seem chosen by the universe. Stop competing to see who meditates more hours or who has the most transcendental spiritual experience. Jung called this archetypal inflation. When the ego appropriates genuine experiences and turns them into medals to hang on your chest. The paradox is beautiful. When you let go of the need to be special, your authentic uniqueness finally has room to flourish. Real uniqueness doesn't shout, doesn't announce itself, doesn't need spotlights. It simply is. Like a tree in the middle of the forest that's not worried about being the tallest or the prettiest, it just grows following its nature. Truly awakened people understand that everyone is unique, not through effort, but by nature. Just like no two fingerprints are the same, you don't need to force yourself to be different, you already are. But there's something even more subtle that needs to be let go of, a performance so well rehearsed that many don't even realize they're doing it. It's that smiling mask we wear for the world, that unspoken obligation to always be okay, always positive, always happy. Letting go of the performance of happiness. There is a silent tyranny in the obligation to always be okay, and few people realize the weight they carry trying to maintain that mask. Jung observed that modern society created a kind of dictatorship of positivity, where showing vulnerability became synonymous with weakness, and admitting you're struggling internally is almost a social crime. It's exhausting, you know, pretending everything's great when inside it feels like a hurricane just passed through. Smiling in photos while your soul screams for a moment of real rest. Spiritually awakened people finally drop this theater, not because they became pessimists or grumps, but because they understood something liberating. Negative feelings aren't the enemy, they're messengers trying to tell you something important. The performance of happiness is like wearing shoes 3 sizes too small. You can manage to walk, but every step hurts. What happens is that when someone's always pretending to be fine, they completely disconnect from their own body and emotions. It's like installing an autopilot that responds, "I'm great," while the truth stays stuck in their throat. Truly mature people discover there's a huge difference between genuine optimism and toxic positivity. The first accepts reality and finds hope despite it. The second denies reality and demands you smile while you're sinking. They stop censoring their sadness, their anger, their exhaustion, as if they were factory defects that need to be hidden. Letting go of this performance doesn't turn anyone into a walking well of negativity, quite the opposite. When you allow your feelings to exist without judgment, something magical happens. They pass. It's like a wave in the ocean. It comes, reaches its peak, and naturally dissolves on the sand. But if you keep fighting the wave, trying to push it back to sea, it only gets stronger and knocks you down harder. Jung said that what we resist persists, and that goes especially for our emotional states. True peace doesn't come from always being happy, but from being able to surf all the waves without drowning in any of them. But there's something even deeper that awakened people need to let go of, a need that permeates almost every human decision. It's that desperate urge to have all the answers, to know exactly what's going to happen, to control every variable in life. It's an illusion of security that keeps millions of people paralyzed, unable to take the next step. Letting go of the need for certainty. The need for certainty is one of the strongest ties that keeps people in a small, predictable life. Jung realized that humans have a deep fear of the unknown, an almost obsessive need to map every curve in the road before taking the first step. It's like we need a detailed GPS of our entire life before leaving the garage. And when the signal fails, we go into total panic. Spiritually mature people learn something radical. Life wasn't made to be controlled, it was made to be lived. They let go of that tightrope of certainty and discover there's a strange beauty in not knowing what's coming, a freedom that only those who take risks can experience. The paradox is fascinating. The more someone seeks certainty, the more anxious they become, because absolute certainty simply doesn't exist on this plane of existence. It's like trying to hold smoke in your hands. You might pretend you caught it for a moment, but soon it escapes through your fingers. Truly awakened people make peace with uncertainty, not because they became irresponsible or reckless, but because they understood that life is essentially mysterious and unpredictable. They stop postponing important decisions, waiting for the perfect moment that never comes. Stop demanding guarantees before moving. Stop sacrificing real opportunities at the altar of imaginary security. Jung called this embracing the shadow of uncertainty, learning to dance in the dark without knowing where the floor ends. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's constant training in letting go of control one little finger at a time. It's like learning to swim. At first, you cling to the edge of the pool with all your strength, but eventually you realize the water holds you up when you stop fighting it. Spiritually evolved people develop a strange trust in life's process, not a blind faith that everything will work out, but a deep acceptance that they'll be able to handle whatever comes. There's an absurd peace in admitting, I don't know what's going to happen, and that's okay. It's like taking off a backpack full of rocks you didn't even know you were carrying. But there's an even more challenging abandonment waiting right there, something that messes with most people's deepest identity. It's that whole internal narrative about who's to blame, who's the victim, who owes what to whom. It's a mental game as old as humanity itself, one that keeps entire generations trapped in a vicious cycle of resentment and self-pity. Letting go of blame and the victim-aggressor narrative. The victim and aggressor narrative is like a badly written script we insist on reenacting every day, expecting a different ending. Jung deeply studied how people build their identities on top of these villain and hero stories, turning their own life into an endless soap opera where someone always owes them reparation. It's comfortable, in a strange way, to have an external culprit for all your problems. Your absent father, that ex who cheated on you, the incompetent boss, the unjust system. When you point your finger outward, you don't have to look inward and face your own responsibility in the mess your life has become. Spiritually awakened people do something revolutionary. They completely drop this blame game and take full responsibility for their own experience without martyring themselves in the process. Responsibility here doesn't mean guilt, and this distinction is crucial. Guilt paralyzes, responsibility liberates. It's the difference between saying, I'm a victim of circumstances, and I'm the author of my response to circumstances. Sure, bad things happen. People hurt you. Life punches you in the face without asking permission. Denying that would be naive. but carrying those stories like suffering medals, reliving every betrayal and every injustice as if they happened yesterday, is choosing to live in a prison where you yourself are the warden. Truly mature people realize that while they're busy pointing fingers and collecting emotional debts, life is passing by, and the only one hurt in this equation is you. Letting go of this narrative starts with an uncomfortable question. What do I gain by keeping this story alive? Because every time someone clings to a victim identity, there's a hidden secondary gain: attention, pity, justification for not growing, permission to not try again. It's brutal to admit this, but it's the naked truth. Jung said, "We don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making darkness conscious." And part of that darkness is recognizing how sometimes we prefer the comfort of known suffering to the discomfort of real change. Awakened people cut this umbilical cord with the past, not because they forgot what happened, but because they chose not to let it define who they are today. But there's an even more subtle trap on the spiritual path, one that catches even the most conscious people off guard. It's when awakening itself becomes a sophisticated hideout, when beautiful concepts about enlightenment serve to escape from real, concrete problems. It's what many people call spiritual bypassing, and it might be the most treacherous obstacle of all. Letting go of spiritual bypassing. Spiritual bypassing is when someone uses spirituality as anesthesia to not feel the pain of being human, and this is more common than you'd think. Jung frequently warned about this phenomenon, people who dive into spiritual practices not to find themselves, but to run from themselves. It's like using meditation to avoid having that difficult conversation with someone, or quoting Buddhist detachment to justify financial irresponsibility, or saying everything is energy, when really you're just afraid to deal with practical, mundane problems. Spirituality becomes a sophisticated shield against reality, an elegant form of existential procrastination. Truly awakened people recognize when they're using beautiful concepts to escape ugly issues, and have the courage to step down from the spiritual pedestal and get their hands dirty in the mess of real life. This trap is treacherous because it comes wrapped in spiritual gift paper with ribbons of ancient wisdom and a card written in Sanskrit. Someone can spend years attending retreats, accumulating alternative therapy certifications, memorizing mantras, and filling their house with crystals, while their personal relationships crumble and their basic responsibilities lie abandoned. It's easier to talk about chakras than about that credit card debt, more comfortable to discuss past lives than to face traumas from this life, more glamorous to post about gratitude on social media than to actually practice presence with whoever lives with you. Jung saw this clearly, how the spiritual search can become the ego's greatest defense mechanism, creating an identity of evolved person that's just another mask, perhaps even harder to remove than the others. Real spiritual work isn't pretty or Instagrammable. It's sitting with that anger you'd rather deny. It's paying your bills on time, even when you'd rather be meditating. It's apologizing when you were wrong, instead of justifying with, "It's what my higher self needed to do." Spiritually mature people understand that enlightenment without responsibility is just escapism with incense. They integrate the spiritual with the material, the transcendent with the mundane, without using one to escape the other. They're able to meditate in the morning and wash dishes in the afternoon with the same presence, to read about non-duality and still pay rent on time. Real spirituality makes you more present in life, not less. If you're using it to absent yourself, something's wrong in the equation. But there's one last abandonment that's perhaps the most paradoxical of all, something that goes against everything they say about spiritual journeys. It's that romantic idea that you need to be alone to find yourself, that awakening is a solitary journey that separates you from the rest of humanity. It's time to let go of even that. There's a dangerous myth about spiritual awakening that needs to be dismantled. The idea that the more conscious you become, the more isolated you need to be. Jung watched with concern as many people used awakening as an excuse to distance themselves from everyone, creating a spiritual ivory tower where only the enlightened fit. It's tempting, isn't it? To look at the world with its superficial problems and think, nobody understands me. I'm too different for these people. But the inconvenient truth is this. If your awakening separates you from humanity instead of connecting you more deeply with it, maybe you woke up in the wrong room. Truly awakened people discover that expanded consciousness isn't an exclusive club. It's a bridge that brings you closer to all beings, not one that distances you from them. Spiritual isolation usually starts subtly. You stop attending certain gatherings because people are too dense. Cut off old friendships because they don't vibrate at the same frequency. Avoid family because they don't understand your journey. And suddenly, you're alone in an apartment full of self-help books, only talking to people on the internet who confirm your beliefs, living in a bubble you call peace, but is just disguised loneliness. Jung had a term for this: spiritual ego inflation, when someone confuses awakening with superiority, when they think evolving means placing themselves above others. The irony is brutal. You seek enlightenment and end up creating the biggest shadow of all, separation. True spirituality doesn't take you out of the world, it puts you more into it, but with different eyes. It's like that story of the monk who comes down from the mountain after years of meditation. He doesn't stay up there thinking he's special. He comes down to help carry water and firewood with the others. Spiritually mature people maintain real human connections, even imperfect ones, even challenging ones. They can be with people at different levels of consciousness without judgment, without feeling the need to preach or convert, simply being present where they are. They know you can have a deep inner life and still laugh at silly jokes with friends, discuss advanced spirituality, and also watch silly Netflix shows without guilt. Real awakening integrates, it doesn't segregate. And it's exactly this delicate balance between internal transformation and external connection that leads us to the final insight about the awakening process. Because in the end, this whole path of abandonments and deconstructions leads to an unexpected place, a conclusion that might seem contradictory, but reveals the essence of everything. After going through all these abandonments, we arrive at a paradoxical truth that Jung spent his entire life trying to explain. Giving up is not failure, it's liberation, but it's not just any giving up. It's not giving up on life, on dreams, or on growth. It's giving up the exhausting struggle of being who you're not, of carrying weights that were never yours, of sustaining masks that only hurt your face. You know that feeling of finally putting down a super heavy suitcase you'd been carrying for miles? That's what happens when someone stops fighting against themselves and against life. There's a sacred surrender in accepting your complete humanity with all its imperfections, fears, and contradictions, and discovering you were always enough, even when you thought you needed to be more. The rebirth that comes after these abandonments isn't loud or dramatic like in the movies. There's no epic music playing in the background or a specific moment where everything makes sense. It's more like gradually waking up from a long dream and realizing you were asleep the whole time. Real life was always here. You were just distracted with illusions. Truly awakened people don't become perfect or enlightened in the fantastical sense of the word. They continue being human, making mistakes, feeling pain, going through challenges. The difference is that now they're no longer at war with themselves, don't need to prove anything to anyone, don't carry that invisible weight of impossible expectations. Jung said the process of individuation, of becoming who you really are, has no finish line. There's no spiritually realized person diploma to hang on the wall. It's more like tending a garden. You never finish. There's always something sprouting, something that needs pruning, something that surprises you with an unexpected flower. Every abandonment you make opens space for something new to grow, not something you need to search for out there, but something that was already inside, waiting for permission to exist. It's like cleaning dust off a mirror. You don't create your true reflection, you just remove what was preventing you from seeing it clearly. And perhaps the most liberating insight of all is this: you do not need to make this journey alone, don't need to have all the answers now, don't need to force any of these abandonments. They happen naturally when you're ready, like leaves falling from a tree in autumn. Not because the tree decided it was time, but because it was inevitable. The only thing you really need to do is stop pretending everything's fine when it's not. Stop carrying what isn't yours. Stop fighting against life's current. The rest unfolds on its own, at the right time, in the right way. And you'll realize, maybe years later, that it was never about becoming someone better. It was always about remembering who you were before they taught you who you should be. So, after everything we've talked about here, the most important question remains: what are you going to do with this now? Because knowledge without application is just entertainment, and you didn't get this far just to pass the time, right? Look at your life now with brutal honesty. Which of these 7 abandonments is screaming loudest for your attention? Which of these weights are you carrying that you do not even notice how much it tires you anymore? Maybe it's that desperate hunger for approval that makes you dance to everyone else's tune, or maybe it's the need to be special, to prove your worth all the time. It could also be that happiness mask you wear even when alone, or the urge to control every detail of the future that paralyzes you in the present. The truth is, nobody's going to do this work for you. No guru, no course, no miracle video. Jung left the map, but you need to walk the path. And you know what's most liberating about all this? You don't need to let go of everything at once. Choose one, just one of these weights, and start releasing it slowly. Notice what happens when you stop seeking external approval for a week. Feel what it's like to not need to be special for a few days. Try letting the mask fall and being honest about how you're really feeling. Which of these abandonments are you willing to make first? Do you have the courage to start today, or will you wait until circumstances are perfect? Spoiler, they never will be. And here's a final provocation. If you made it to the end of this video, something inside you already knows it's time to change. That discomfort you feel is not a sign that something's wrong with you. It's a sign that you're ready to truly wake up. The question isn't whether you can make these abandonments, but whether you'll have the courage to start. Because at the end of the day, the life you really want to live is on the other side of these weights you insist on carrying. So tell me, are you going to keep pretending everything's fine, or are you finally going to let go of what no longer serves you? If this content moved you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next videos where we go deeper into these themes that really transform lives. And look, there's an incredible video waiting for you at the end screen about how to identify when you're using spirituality to escape your real problems. It's a punch in the gut, but the kind that wakes you up. Go watch it, you won't regret it.